I'm Jesse McAnally.
And I am Andrew DeWolf.
And I'm Brianna Jones.
And welcome to Musical Switchies, a podcast where I try to get Andrew and Brie to like musical theater. And today, we have one of our favorite guests that we've ever had. One of our most downloaded episodes is our waitress episode. And
most specialist guest.
One of our most specialist guests. I love her to death. She's like a good friend now. She helped me with my Valentine's Day gift. She's great. It is from Tell Me on a Sunday podcast, actress and comedian Grace Aki. Grace! Yay!
I'm like clapping for myself like an asshole. I'm so happy to be back. This is my favorite thing. I mean, I was so honored when we did Waitress. I've been eagerly awaiting our next, collaboration. And when you guys put out that you were gonna do Spring Awakening, I was like, please, me, please, now. So I'm really excited to talk about this.
I mean, spring is awakening right now. In fact, yeah, there's you spat it out there. This week
is that what this show's about?
Yeah. This week
it's
we
the
are
high
covering
pollen count.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're right. You can tell. I can't breathe. Spring is awoken. Trigger
warning: if you have allergies, don't watch this episode.
Also, a trigger for a lot of other things. You know, there's a lot of stuff that happens in this musical, and maybe if you're not into like sexual assault and like a lot of like forced abortions, maybe sit this episode out. Like maybe this might be a little too much for you. But this week we're covering Spring Awakening. Cue the music, Brie.
Mama who bore me, Mama who gave me handle things, who made me so sad. Mama the weeping, Mama the angels, no sleep in heaven or Bethlehem.
Spring Awakening is a musical with music by Duncan Sheik and lyrics and book by Steven Sater, based on Franz Wedekind's Spring Awakening, which is a German book play that was very, very similar. They didn't change much from the story. It premiered at the Eugene O'Neill Theater on December 10th, 2006, and closed January 18th, 2009, after 859 performances and 29 previews. The original Broadway production won 8 Tony Awards, including the Tonys for Best Musical, Direction, Book, Score, and Featured Actor. The production also garnered 4 Drama Desk Awards, while its original cast album received a Grammy Award. In addition, the show received a 2015 Broadway revival and garnered 3 Tony Award nominations for that. The plot of this is it's based on Franz Wedekind's play of the same name. Spring Awakening depicts a dozen young people making their way through the thrilling, complicated, and mysterious time of sexual awakening. All right, Grace. I don't quite know how old are you, but I feel like you and I are roughly within like 5 years of the same age. So this is kind of our bread and butter time for being like coming up and seeing this edgy, brand new rock musical hitting like the Broadway stage, unlike anything we'd ever seen at the time. And I feel like a lot of folks in our age group look at it now and is like, ooh, that's a little cringy. That's a little try-hard edgelord, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
is it though?
It's funny because every generation has one of these shows.
Yes.
You have Hair, you have Rent, and then you got Spring Awakening. Every generation had their own pop rock, sexually charged, we're not going to take it kind of musical. This generation has Dear Evan Hansen, which... woof. So yeah, like I think that,
the worst generation. Am I right?
Am I right? Oh, these
they don't have
zoomers.
that.
They just don't get it.
Like they can say they have Be More Chill, but like it. I mean, tell me where the abortion is and Be More Chill. You know,
there's none. There isn't one.
There's not one.
No abortion.
That's why it flopped.
That is why it flopped. No abortions.
That's why it flopped.
I'm hoping that A Strange Loop is actually this generation's and that they like really embrace that when that hits Broadway. That's my hope. Because that is like the sexually charged counterculture musical that I want to be the big next Spring Awakening. But back to Spring Awakening.
I totally hear that. And it would be nice for it not to be about a white guy. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be great. I'd hate for it to be Hamilton too, but that's a whole different world. Grace,
Hamilton's not edgy enough, like
not at all, not at all. When did you first hear about Spring Awakening? When was your awakening to Spring Awakening?
Oh, funny enough, I think I was about 14 years old when a friend of mine, I was in a theater camp in Chattanooga, they were like, you gotta listen to this album. And I put it in my like little Walkman CD player with Rainbow Bright stickers on top of it. And I
The Death of Innocence right there. That is like the description of the Death of Innocence.
Yeah, I mean, it was super exciting and sexy, and I didn't feel sexy. Like, I looked like a thumb. And so I was so excited by this album because I thought it felt rageful. It felt like a lot of the Green Day stuff, to be frank, that I had been listening to. It was right, I think, before American Idiot came out. Yeah, so I don't know. That first time listening to the CD was what sent me off. That's what got me involved. And then I begged my mom to drive me to like the bookstore, which I think was like a Borders bookstore in Atlanta. Like I was like, we've got to go to a big one. And we went to the theater section. I was like, I want to get like the play. And all they had was the Frank Wedekind novel, that one, the Franz one. And I convinced my mom to buy it. She did not read what the content was. And I was like, this was very upsetting. I don't know what I got myself into. None of the music's in here and everyone's in pain. So that was me getting into it.
That's a great story. I mean, that's how I feel like every teen feels like they find this musical and it's like, ooh, this is a dirty little secret. I'm listening to musical theater, but it's all about like sex and jerking off and pointing it at the wall. It's just so edgy.
Yeah. I mean, it was. Because
by
also
the
they're all
edge.
playing 13-year-olds, around 12,
Yes.
13-year-old kids.
It's that part is the fucked up part, especially when you're like 14 and you embrace this, because I was right around the same age when I first listened and watched clips on YouTube and like discovered this show, and it felt dirty. It felt like, ooh, I shouldn't be listening to this, and they were contemporaries with me, which was like, how often do you see media or storytelling that shows like a 10-year-old or 12-year-old sexuality developing and how you're unaware of like the world around you and like how adults don't always have your best interest? Like it felt like a Nickelodeon kids grown up, like to be like, yeah, adults still don't understand despite the fact that we're all growing up and trying to figure this out.
It's a bit of a touchy subject
Yeah,
to talk
exactly.
about
So
10-year-olds discovering sexuality.
Yeah, but it happens though.
But the thing is that they are discovering it, and that's what I think is the beauty of this story, is the fact that they are discovering it whether you want them to or not, and they're going to figure out their own way of discovering it if you don't tell them what the fuck's going on. So when you don't tell them what the fuck is going on, there are consequences, and that's what happens in this story, which I really love to see, because I think that there's so much repression even now, whether it's Catholic schools or not. Like I grew up in the South, like you were disgusting if you made out, So I think it's a tale as old as time, to be honest. I mean, it was written in the 1800s and it's still relevant today.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't change much from that 1800s play to its adaptation. They just added a bunch of weird poetic music to it, and changed up the language a tiny bit. But it's basically the same events, same order, same characters, which is fascinating to me. But the next question I have is for Andrew, who just watched this musical for the first time yesterday. Sure. And as someone who is well past their sexual development and all that, how did this musical hit you?
Well, you don't know that.
But maybe not.
Maybe you're just starting.
Maybe we never stopped developing,
You're right.
Okay.
What'd you think?
Well, it's edgy. It's definitely very edgy. I kind of felt like it was like a good edgy in a way, It's not like the type of like, yeah, I'm edgy and it's just racism or something like that. It's like edgy, but like
With a
it's
point.
about something. With a point, Now, is it pointed enough? I'm not really sure. Does it need to go as far as it does? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I am still unsure if I liked it or not. I don't really know.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to feel about it.
That is a fair point, and this is an interesting thing I'm developing, because I can't really see beyond my own viewpoint of how I discovered this and how people like Grace and I discovered this. People older than us, Grace, like my friend Emily Clark, did not get into this musical. They do not like this musical. They did not understand this musical. And the Zoomers, who are younger than us and developing like their own taste, the Beetlejuice lovers, the Dear Evan Hansen lovers, the Be More Chill lovers, hopefully the Strange Loop lovers, they did not connect with this show. In fact, they find it highly offensive. So you and I are from the one generation that really attached to this show.
Jess, this is your rent.
This is our rent, and it's fucked up to say that aloud. A lot of people, including a very famous YouTuber, tried to claim that this was not our rent, our Hamilton, our whatever, but Avenue Q was, and I'm like, no. Actively no. It's this.
That is a few years earlier, and I have to say I do understand that viewpoint, because Avenue Q beating out Wicked in 2000, I don't remember,
3?
but it was pretty historic.
Yes.
Because it was one of the first times something that was really fucking raunchy beat something by Steven Schwartz. Like, that was a huge deal. So I can understand somebody taking the whole, like, this was for us, this was for youth, this was for, like, culture, this was for, satirical comedies, and I can see that. But I think as far as, like, pop rock, sexually charged, intense, youth and revolt type of material, that's this.
Avenue Q isn't the same genre. Avenue Q doesn't have this pointed, like, at teenagers, this is for you kind of thing. It's more just, like, raunchy. Avenue Q almost feels like it's for stoners, you know?
No, Avenue Q feels like it's for the South Park, hey, I bet you would get away with this.
Written, so yeah.
I mean, Avenue Q is good in its own way, but I don't think it's the same as this, and I don't think it's the same as Rent, and I don't think it fits that genre of, like, what this is.
And it bothers me a little bit when people kind of, like, talk down to children. I hate talking down to kids. Like, Andrew, have I ever told you what our demographics for this show are?
No.
It is mostly 14 to 21-year-olds. That is everyone else. And then it drops down to, like, mostly, like, 20-year-olds, and then we jump up again when we hit, like, the 45-year-olds. I don't know why, but... We're getting the kids.
Those are the people that can afford to go to Broadway.
Maybe. But it's interesting our demographic leans so young. And I think it's because you and I have never talked down to kids, and we've never looked at the new kid-centric thing as a negative outright. And I think that's super important. But I see a lot of Broadway folk, Broadway fans, really don't like when kids have media prescribed to them. They hate the SpongeBobs. They hate the Be More Chills. They don't like Beetlejuice, which is just like, the kids need to see something on Broadway that isn't Lion King.
All of those pieces that you just named, but what's also interesting is the fact that, yes, it technically is skewed. Like, SpongeBob was a children's series, but that musical was incredibly intelligent. You know what I mean? So I think that there's this weird disconnect.
I don't know.
Yeah. There's this weird thing of people being angry that things are for young people, but I'm like, sorry, those are the future ticket buyers. So I don't really give a shit, because if something's intelligent and something is worthwhile art-wise, why are you gatekeeping this? Newsies was selling out every performance when it closed. The Disney Corporation said, we don't want to keep 3 shows on Broadway at a time. And so that's why they close a show whenever they open one. And so as soon as Aladdin came in, they were like, oh, we've got to close Newsies, because they did it as they thought they were just going to be on Broadway for 1 year. They were trying to fill a theater until they brought the next show in. And what happened is, because the youth crazed over it, there was the Tumblr of it all. There was the Playbill backstage of it all. Kids went nuts, and they would beg their parents for money, and they would go see the show. And Spring Awakening had closed by then. You didn't have the same shows that were available. And then they were like, what? How did this happen? It's because young people like art, so shut up.
And also...
No, art is for old, rich people. That's the only people who are allowed to enjoy art.
Yes, and that's... It's a big problem when we start gatekeeping theater. I really don't like the idea of, like, gatekeeping theater in and of itself. But then you have something like Dear Evan Hansen, which I think is actively dangerous for young people to enjoy. I think that prescribes very dangerous ideals, very effective, very triggering bad things.
Jess, couldn't you make an argument that this is exactly what you just said about Dear Evan Hansen?
There is the argument there.
I want someone to make that argument, because I want to fight.
I'm not going to, because I'm not my dad or whatever. But, Jess, maybe you are someone's dad. Maybe we are. 'Cause we've
Motherfucker,
been
let
outspoken
me
about
talk to you
Jeremy
about
Hansen.
a second here. Bitch, let me tell you what the fuck I want to say here. My God. Dear Evan Hansen has a message of you will be forgiven even if you're a horrible piece of shit person that takes advantage of an entire family grieving a loss. Whereas this tells a story of if you don't educate your kids about sex, they will find out themselves and do irrevocable harm to themselves, their families, and everything else, eventually leading to very dangerous, deadly circumstances. Which message do I want kids to see, Andrew?
I agree.
That's the thing. You got to go back to what is the show trying to say, and Spring Awakening is not saying something dangerous, but it's something very important that no one else was really saying in like media at the time, whereas Dear Evan Hansen is garbage shit.
Yeah. Also, Dear Evan Hansen's not nearly as edgy as this is. Like, it's edgy to people that read between the lines, because it's like, wow, you really did that. But I don't think it's edgy in the way that this is. This is like, it's like shock value, this show.
Yeah, I mean, there's physical abuse that often gets like grazed over in the show. You know, like when he's equating like being sexually frustrated and violence. I think that that's definitely something that I would hope that somebody after the show would talk about, you know, because I think that we kind of have this very intense scene when he says, I'll beat the hell out of you, and then hits her. Granted, when I was in the show, unfortunately, the director told the guy to actually beat me, and I didn't really love that. That's another story for another time. Listen to my podcast.
Yeah,
it's like,
don't do that.
you know, I think there's...
Directors are shit.
No, don't do that. But I think they're shit. They are absolute shit. Well, he's wanted in several states, and I'll be honest.
What?
I know. What? Yeah.
Listen to Grace's
it's a whole
podcast,
thing. It's
people.
not cute. Rape. Anyways.
Fuck.
Unfortunately,
Should
I'm
he
not
have
a good
been
writer.
directing Spring
I'm not a
Awakening?
good storyteller. I just retell real shit. But I think that there are so many good conversations to have after seeing the show that I would hope it would not be limited to, wow, that song was awesome, you know? And I think that with things like, you know, Dear Evan Hansen, as exciting, and the music is great, like the score is fantastic, and a lot of the performances are great. I don't think that I think you're right. I think we don't have the conversations afterwards where it's like, hey, so like, that was not a good person that you just empathized with.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot
Well, it's almost the show doesn't want to have that conversation either. It's like actively trying to cover that up. Like, don't think about that. Don't think about that.
And there's a lot of things that bother me specifically about that show, specifically about how they use coded autism to try to characterize Evan, and then also use that as a blame for his behavior, where I'm like, no, autistic people are not just people that don't understand what human emotions are and all that. That is a horrible representation that you're trying to either claim. Yeah.
Also, not understanding human emotions, like, that's more like sociopaths, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Evan Hansen is a sociopath that has...
Which people have argued, Andrew.
I mean, I would make that argument. I feel like I may have even done that, but I don't remember that episode.
Yeah, we'll revisit that when that movie comes out in September and causes even more irrevocable harm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Andrew, tell us what the plot of Spring Awakening is, to the best of your ability.
Sure. There's a bunch of really shitty parents, and they all have kids, and they don't teach their kids about sex at all, and then they treat their kids like shit, and all their kids die. How'd this happen? My goodness.
To quote Mean Girls, don't have sex or you'll get pregnant and die, which is the plot of Spring Awakening.
No, but like actually, so there's like there's a guy who is like a revolutionary type.
Melchior.
He's kind of the lead. And his friends are like different lessons he learns in a way. I don't know.
This
He's
is
the only survivor at the end. He's the only survivor at the end of the show. One of his friends like wants to jerk off and he gets flunked out of school even though he technically passed, but his teachers are dicks.
Adults are terrible.
Fail him anyway. So then his dad is like, yeah, I'm gonna kick you out, and his only adult friend doesn't help him, so then he kills himself.
No, don't forget that. He also tries to, like, have a connection with a woman, and then he fucks that all up, and then he decides, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna just end it all, because my grades are bad and girls don't like me.
Yes. So that's the first big thing. Then, what is his name? Melchior?
Melchior, yeah.
Yes.
has another friend, Wendla, and she has a mother who won't teach her about sex at all, like to the point of still talking about storks. They meet up, and she wants him to beat her so she will feel something, and he goes overboard, and that's a very awkward scene, but...
And it just kind of ends. Like, that's kind of the thing. You don't deal with the aftermath of that scene, which bothers me.
Yeah. It kind of lets you sit with it, though. I think it's powerful. It's just difficult to watch. Then they meet up again and have sex, which is...
Dubious consent-wise.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll talk about that. And she gets pregnant, and he gets blamed for the suicide, and they find out that he's the father, so he gets sent off to, like, boarding school or something, reform school. And when he comes back, Wendla is also dead because her mother took her to get a abortion, with like an illegal abortion, and it failed, and she died. So not the happiest ending, but that is how it ends.
Yeah.
So...
Then
well, actually, it ends with Melchior wants to also commit suicide, and the ghosts convince him not to.
That's important, yeah. The ghosts of his friends tell him, no, don't kill yourself.
Either that or he does kill himself and he sees his ghost friends.
Either way, ghost friends.
Yeah.
Grace, you played Wendla, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
We already said that.
I think it was, 9 years ago. And I was so excited to do that show. It meant a lot to me. I also got to choreograph it. I did that.
My question for you, as someone that has been inside that character, is, in your interpretation, was the Act 1 closing sex scene consensual fully? Like, is she in a mental mind space where she can give consent?
No,
I don't think
I've never
possible.
Felt that
She's
way.
not informed. She's not informed enough.
Yeah,
then
it's exactly that, and it's what happens to a lot of minors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a difficult scene because they're kind of both not informed enough in a way, but obviously it's probably worse for her since her mother literally won't tell her anything about sex at all. So, not good. Very awkward scene.
And he's been reading about it. You know what I mean?
He's been reading about it, so he knows more about it.
Yeah.
The adults
like
make
two
literally
people
one
trying
good
to bake
point.
A cake.
Exactly. But the adults make one good point, which is, obviously from this essay, he knew what the consequences of doing this, and she didn't. So really, he is the one to blame, which is the one good point made by them. But it's also like, I'm instituting my knowledge about Wendla and her home life onto what Melchior knows and which he doesn't. I can't assume that he does and doesn't. So I don't know. It's a very terrible scene to watch, but it's portrayed like so beautifully with the I Believe music behind it. It's
a difficult scene, but it's supposed to be. It's intentional edge is,
The only thing I ever have a problem with in that scene, that I still have a problem with every time it's done, is the fact that, first of all, I just want to say this outright. I don't have a problem with nudity. I am not a prude. I love to fuck. Mm-hmm. Second of all,
fair.
On stage, when young people are young, if they're portrayed as a child, there has to be some element of shielding the fact that the audience is getting to watch something incredibly intimate of two young people. And when we sexualize young people in that kind of way, I feel like it's a little sus and it's a little predatory. And I think that it gives way to people accepting young people's sexuality, and I think it's inappropriate. So that's where I'm at with
I partially agree, but partially disagree because it's not a sexy scene, like in any way.
Oh.
If you find the scene sexy,
sure, but think about how many people watch
depraved.
revenge porn or rape porn.
Yes.
True.
Snuff porn.
I won't disagree with that. There are definitely people that find this sexy, but they are weird.
Yeah.
Can I tell an anecdote?
Right, and but our
proves
preference
that?
is healthy.
Yes.
I have an anecdote about when I was first getting into this, and a friend of mine was like, man, like showing off the bootleg as like something hot during that scene. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
are you stupid?
no. Yeah, well, it's almost sociopathic. It's like, are you empathizing with the characters in any way? Or are you just like, Ah, nice. Nudity. Sick.
Lib self titties. Let's go. But Grace, when you did it, did you do the nudity side of that? And oh my god, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah. It was terrifying, but at the same time, I felt really comfortable with my scene partner. I didn't feel like, and the way that this one was staged was that Venla's head was towards the audience, like the top of her head, and so Melchior was standing above her, so it wasn't sideways where you can just see butt. You really just saw the top of someone's head, and then Melchior standing above her, so you really just saw his chest and nothing, and it just looked like there was a lot of like thrusting and whatnot. But yeah, the way to do it on that side, instead of seeing people like plank style, like perpendicular, eliminates a lot of nudity, which is great. So she's shielded, he's shielded, it's fine.
Which I think is the best way to do it. I think that's actually a very smart way to handle this scene, where you get the implication of nudity, like, by all means, you guys are nude, but it doesn't feel objectified in the way that I really am off-put by, like, them pushing around the swing stage where we're all just seeing, like, Jonathan Groff's ass. And, like, people would go up
It's almost like they're staging it so it can be sexy. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah, and people would go up to Jonathan Groff, like, later, and he's like, I know you have a mole on your butt because I've seen the show 25 times. I'm like, fuck, why?
Yeah, it's not sexy. If there's one takeaway from that scene is I don't think it's sexy.
It's a vulgar, disgusting scene, and that's just one of many vulgar, disgusting scenes. Like, we haven't even talked...
Intentionally so. That's not a negative, though. It's intentionally so.
Yes, but let's talk about, like, the Dark I Know Well, where two girls are being raped by parents. Like, fuck me.
Well...
No,
yeah,
fuck.
but
Shut the fuck up. Fuck,
not in that way.
Shut the hell up. Shut your goddamn mouth.
No, it's a really harrowing scene. It's a beautiful song that I think Taya sings. Is it Taya? And then another character. It's really heartbreaking because I think it really accurately depicts how these things happen within a household, which I think is often not talked about on stage. You always hear it, like, the song or the storyline is always like, oh, and then this happened, and I didn't know the person. And, you know, it's been proven 8 out of 10 sexual assaults are happening within a home and or with someone that you know. So that song has always killed. I honestly, I have to skip it a lot of times when I'm listening to the album because it's too hard. It's really hard.
It is, it is a very sad one.
The specific lyrics of I just lie there and breathe, like that seems like...
This is a very uplifting watch. I mean, you really come out of it feeling happy and...
Well, the thing is, like, very often, the lyrics of this musical are just overly poetic and just kind of just general, like, feeling, like, putting my feels into poetry, where that song is super specific, like, in its choices, where it's very, it is too specific where it feels outside of every other song in there. Like, compare that to, like, something also very intense, like Whispering, where it's just very general descriptions and emotional, like, poetry, whereas this is just like, I lie there and breathe, and he's on top of me, and, like, I can't stand... Like, it's horrible.
Can I tell you just a quick anecdote about Whispering? Because I think that song sucks ass. Because I don't think that I think Duncan Sheik kills it musically.
Yes.
I think that he writes all of his great songs for men, and that's no offense to him, but he definitely doesn't write good songs for women a lot of the time. I love him. I know him. He's great. But
everybody wants to rule the world
Whispering...
from American Psycho. What are you talking about?
That's not even
that's
him.
a great song. What are you talking about?
Yeah. It's a great song, but he didn't write it.
I know.
And so the only thing about Whispering is the fact that I would forget the lyrics because it's so repetitive.
Yes.
And one time in rehearsal, I sang Listerine instead of Whispering. Because I was like, I don't fuck Listerine. Like, I just didn't know. And I had to look at the orchestra because I was like, can you just, like, tell me where we're at?
Minty Fresh.
But yeah, so that song, I'll never learn the lyrics. Yeah.
Oh well,
I get that, and now that I'm looking at the score, like, oh my god, you're right. I think the only good, like, female song was Dark I Know Well.
And isn't that sad?
It really is fucking sad.
Are we going to get into everyone's favorite song of the show? I know you have like a...
we'll
how
do
you wanna
that.
talk about this.
We'll do that a little later. But first, before we move on to that, we got to move on to our favorite segment of the show, where we compare our opinions to those of the New York theater critics when this show came out. It's time for previews.
It's time for previews. It's time for previews.
All right, Bree, what do we got this week?
Wait, Jess, do you have 2 reviews by the same person?
You do have 2 reviews from the same person.
But he apparently, when they just brought Spring Awakening back, they just called up the same fucking guy to review it again.
Hey, can you review this again?
Mr. Charles Isherwood.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's get into this. And it's,
okay. Here we go.
Okay. So New York Times critic Charles Isherwood said of the original 2006 production in Spring Awakening, with a ravishing rock score by the playwright Stephen Sater and the singer-songwriter Duncan Sheik. It's Sheik,
Yep.
right? Sheik? Okay. I'm terrible with names. That's why I asked Grace. Flesh makes only a single charged appearance. And for all its frankness about the quest for carnal knowledge, it is blessedly free of the snickering vulgarity that infects too many depictions of sexuality on stage and on screen. Mr. Sater, who wrote the book and lyrics, remains faithful to the play's awareness that the discovery of sex can carry in its heady wake both salvation and destruction, particularly when it is coupled with ignorance. Mr. Sheik's music, spare in its simple orchestrations, lush in its lapping reach of its seductive choruses, embodies the shadowy air of longing that infuses the show, the excitement shading into fear, and the joy that comes with the chaser of despair. The singing throughout is impassioned and affecting, giving powerful voice to the blend of melancholy and hope in the songs. For the characters' confusions are ultimately not sexual, but existential too. Sex is the central expression of life's mystery and a metaphor for it too. But the awakening really takes place in Spring Awakening. It is to something larger than the insistent needs of the flesh. Mr. Sater and Mr. Sheik's angst-riddled teenagers are growing into a new awareness of the bitch of living itself and the beauty of living too.
I was not expecting the New York Times to really gravitate toward this the way that it did. I don't think it would have if Ben Brantley were reviewing that week, to be frank.
Yeah, but wasn't Michael Mayer the director for this the first production?
Yes.
Am I right?
That is correct.
I don't know. He's well regarded by the Times as well. So that doesn't surprise me as far as like respect levels go. It's not like they had like a new up and comer director where they were like, I'm a little skeptical. I like the old way. Bring back Oklahoma. Like it's not, you know what I mean? You've got some people already on board that are well regarded in the community.
That's
so
way Michael
it
Grief
doesn't
keeps
shock
getting
me,
jobs.
but it does surprise me. Yeah. Yeah. He's, I can't.
I love scaffolding and bricks. Yeah, it's great.
And then screens.
Yeah, screens.
Screens. What did I miss?
Continue, Grace.
No. That's it. Oh yeah, Bree, you got more reviews?
We got
one more
yeah.
by the same
We
person.
do have one
10 years later.
10 years later, yes. So New York Times critic Charles Isherwood said of the 2015 Deaf West revival, one of the greatest musicals of the last decade was born anew on Sunday when the thrillingly inventive Deaf West theater production of The Spring Awakening opened on Broadway at the Brooks Atkinson Theater. Any qualms theater lovers might have about this being a premature, whiplash-inducing revival, the original closed in 2009, after all, will vanish like frost in the strong sunlight when the young cast of both hearing and deaf actors floods the stage. Deaf actors in a musical? The prospect sounds challenging to performers and the audiences alike, but you will be surprised at how readily you can assimilate the novelties involved and soon find yourself pleasurably immersed, not in a worthy let's pat ourselves on the back experience, but simply in a first-rate production of of a transporting musical.
Grace, did you see the Deaf West production?
I saw the first preview of the Deaf West production at the Brooks Atkinson Theater. I was so excited. I got some kind of email promotion about like lotto tickets for first preview, which happens often. And so I did it, and I was on like the front row of the balcony or front row of the mezzanine maybe. And I was bawling my eyes out. I thought it was one of the best revivals I've ever seen of a show that I loved, because it happens where you fall in love with a show and then you see a revival and you're like, but they did my baby wrong. And that did not happen. You know what I mean? Like, I thought, what an incredibly crafted retelling of this story. I never would have thought to do it this way. I never would have thought to have John Gallagher Jr.'s character. Why am I blanking?
Moritz.
Melchior and
Moritz.
Moritz was, a deaf actor, and they had another actor doing his voice, and it was just incredibly, because there's a point in the show where that actor, that character is struck by his father, and it's incredibly gut-wrenching and terrifying, honestly, for that child, for that character. And the way he yelped as this, he's a deaf actor, but also this deaf character, was so, you could hear a pin drop in the theater. It was horrifying to watch. And so I just thought all of the performances were spectacular, and the staging was great. And it gave me that same kind of like rock sex appeal. I think that there could have been some different castings that could have also been good, but otherwise, like, what an incredible revival. I didn't give a shit that it was 10 years afterwards. I was like, give me more, give me it every year, do it different, do it with a circus. I don't give a shit. So, yeah, I saw it.
All right. Do we agree with both those reviews? I feel like both of them are fairly positive leaning and tend to get it. Like, it's not like a lot of reviews of New York Times where it's like, what did you think of Spring Awakening? My back hurts today. And that's their review.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about you, Andrew? What do you think?
Well, I haven't seen the Deaf West revival, so I can't comment on that. But I tend to agree with what they've said in the first review.
Mm-hmm. You know who's definitely sexually frustrated?
Me.
Yeah, and the people that made these ads. Take a listen and see if you can hear their sexual frustration. We'll be back with some mid-show announcements. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt you in the middle of the show, but we've got a show at you! Today's show is brought to you by the extremely kind donations by our donors over at Patreon. Andrew, what's Patreon?
Patreon is where you could go if you'd like to give us some money and get some extra content from us. We have the Patreon with Cheese podcast, which we're doing Gallivant right now, and we've done others than Fosse Verdon in the past, Glee in the past. Which I guess Glee is tangentially related to what this is. So.
Yes, it is. How about you read some names to us?
About other stuff. But yeah, why don't we just talk about our current patrons? Because we have a lot of them. Here we go. Melissa Goldman, Terry Needleman, John Donna, Lighton Ackles, Danielle Renix, Taryn the Duck, Jess the Stampede, Ewan Cassidy, Tess Gear, Fire of September, Monica Thoreau, Mina Maniri, Brent Black, Haley Murray, B-Way Flicks, Nathaniel Stacy Coombe, Joseph Evans Green, Carrie Ahern, Christine Malmadale, Mary Lou Choquette, Jean Vanals, Heck You, I Go By Elijah Now, Russ Walker, Musical Hell, Emily Gracie, Andrew Van Barson, Tablam, Kyle Summers, Janae C., Christina Francis, Scoot and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, Liz Lim, Corey Wilmarth, Allison Stuller, Nothing Is Certain Except Beth and Taxes, John Vanals, Thespian, Ren Cullen, Wait in the Wings, Lady Malvolia, Spectacle Machine, Jacob Scroop, Rafael Martinez Salas, Robert Benjamin, Rochelle T, Jessica T as well. Pardon me. Jessica T, Genevieve Hartnett, Cass, Mitchell Young, Chai Teacup, Hayden Wilder, Katie McDonough, Genki Geist, Stakas, Timothy Keys, Jeffrey Machado, Jacqueline Spring, Toon Van Essen, and Jesse Taylor.
These guys give us a little extra financial support that helps us keep the lights on here at Musicals with Cheese. And if you join us like them, you get to see Grace's gorgeous face right now as she's setting up some audio stuff in between this. Just look at that face. Look at that face.
Wonderful.
That's a face that says, you need to get on this Patreon. Oh my God, she's doing a dance now. You're missing out, guys. She just flipped off the camera.
Don't spoil it.
You guys, she's doing some wacky backflips now. Oh my God, you're missing out.
Get on Patreon.
She said it. We got her to say it.
Yay!
Yeah! And also, probably sometime in what's the next month? May. Grace is gonna join us for our monthly live stream. She's gonna hang out with us and play games. So if you loved hearing Grace talk and you want to hear more of her, come join on Patreon and play games with us. It'll be fun. All right.
You can bring up weird sex stuff.
Bring up weird sex stuff. She loves weird sex stuff.
That's why we're doing Spring Awakening.
Wow.
Can you imagine people finally get on the live stream with us and I'm just like,
What? My audio's not working. Someone help me, please.
Oh, that's mean, Jess. That's low.
no, I said nothing. I just gave a blank face.
All right.
Also, we have merch.
We have merch. Buy our shirts and stuff. Man, we've
They're on our
officially
website.
made them more uncomfortable than the Act 1 closer of Spring Awakening. So let's get back to the show.
Mama who bore me, Mama who gave me, Mama the angels who made me so sad. Mama who bore me, Mama who gave me no way to handle things, who made me so sad. Mama the weeping, Mama the angels, no sleep in heaven or Bethlehem. Some pray that one day Christ will come a-calling. They light a candle and hope that it glows. Some just lie there crying for him to come and find them. But when he comes, they don't know how to go.
We're on the song. So Mama Who Bore Me, both of them. For an opening number, this is fucking wacky. Like, immediately undercutting it, and it's not really about setting up the world as much as it is setting up this girl. I am baffled by this opening number.
It
to be
does
honest.
set up the world, Jess. It does
I
set up the
disagree.
world. How do you disagree?
It does-
It's about the parents not teaching them things.
The song isn't about that, really.
It is about that.
This-
The whole show is about that, and the song is about that too.
I don't know.
Yeah, she's saying Mama who gave me. So the mother that bore these children
Yes.
won't tell them how they even got there. So it's all about that conversation that she's having when she's got her head on the lap and telling her, like, can you explain this to me? Can you explain this to me? And she's like, well, no. And the whole song, which, by the way, the Mama Who Bore Me reprise still slaps.
Yes, I
that
agree.
like 4 or 5 part harmony where the altos like go that like they like it's crazy hot. And I think that them whipping out the microphones from the get-go tell you what the distinction between, like, we're in the real world and we're doing this thing and now we're breaking out into like our dream kind of sequence. So yeah, I think that both of you are right. Like, it doesn't say any. Most of the songs are completely disconnected from the plot of the show. It's not like a typical musical. At the same time, the themes are all the same. So
I think what baffles me about this, like, it somewhat follows a musical theater structure where literally right after the two Mama Who Bores Me, we introduce our main character and an I Want song. It's just when I imagine setting up the world, I'm imagining like a big group number about like confused sexuality and all that. And it is that, but it's like the girls. It's the ladies.
Yeah, it probably could have been all of them, but I don't know. I guess the boys don't really fit in.
I mean, the boys have their own like I'm very confused song too coming up, but
yeah, they do.
I love both these numbers. They have totally different feels while still being the same content. The opening one is very haunting, very dark, very kind of off-putting. Where the second one just makes me want to fucking like jump up and dance.
Yeah,
Good numbers, good opening. I guess now we got to talk about the bitch of living, which is the boys' counterpart to Mama Who Bore Me.
Boy, is that true.
Well, it's interesting because we have the girls' quest for knowledge, which is, I want to know how I got here. I want to learn these things. Or guys are like, I have all these fucking urges. What am I going to do? Oh, I got a nut. Those are the two definitions of the how.
I mean, what's different than the conversations we had in middle school? Like, you know what I mean? Like, women are like, but my body is bleeding. And men are like, I just want to jack off. I mean, seriously,
It's
like
true.
women have these.
I was there.
My favorite part is Bree nodding silently. Like, she just looks over like, yeah.
Yeah, because women's sexuality gets wrapped up in this idea for like motherhood, and men don't have to have that. They don't. So all they have is this pent up energy, and I mean, I'm not speaking on behalf of men. I'm just meaning like the juxtaposition of the two songs. That's their sexual trademarks in the show is motherhood and this intense urge. So I think that they both they balance each other out.
But we do have the small...
I think it's great.
I agree. This song is a fucking bop. This song is literally like the most rockin' like Green Day style song in the show. But there is the asterisk of all that's known coming right before this, which is Melchior's quest for knowledge in the same way that the women have their quest for knowledge. It's going about the totally wrong way and in a very more problematic, destructive way than the women in their very innocent, like, I want to learn about my bodies, where he's like, I want to learn so I can be better and like do things. Like his is like an ego trip, where theirs is like a genuine curiosity.
All that's known about history and science, overthrown at school, at home by blind men. You doubt them, and soon they bark and hound you, till everything you say is just another bad about you. All they say is trust in what is written. Wars are made, and somehow that is wisdom. Thought is suspect, and money is their idol, and nothing is okay unless it's scripted in their Bible.
Melchior, just as a character, not a huge fan.
Why?
I don't know. He seems like kind of like a up his own ass kind of guy.
Yeah.
You know, he drops words like bourgeois just into random essays. It's like, you know, you even know what you're talking about? Do you even know what you're talking about? You read a 10-page essay so someone else can jerk off? Come on.
That's just fanfiction.net.
He also drew pictures.
He drew pictures too. And you know what? He wrote a 10-page essay so he could jerk off, because there's definitely stains on that before he gives it to the other guy.
Oh no! Oh!
I'm
just saying.
at the accuracy.
Would you accept my jizz-stained essay, Andrew?
Of course, but you don't have to put it in a show.
Oh, it's going in the show. I have no dog in this hunt, but it's going in the show.
It's going in the, it's gonna be in the show.
Man, the life...
Melchior is this show's what's that guy that I always don't like from Rent?
Mark.
Yeah, it's this show's Mark.
He is. Fuck, you're right. You just like opened up my eyes. Grace, I need your input.
Can I? Okay, very quickly. Unfortunately, a year before I was in Spring Awakening, I was in Rent and I was dating Mark. And then in that show, I married Melchior. So I have to say maybe there's a type. Second of all,
yeah.
yikes bikes. But oh gosh, like what were you looking for my take on? I mean, I
What's
love
your
all
thoughts on
that's known
Melchior?
because I really love the reprise that it. I think he's a fine character to be kind of the titular, like, I think he's the proper vessel for the story. I don't really have
Mark.
feelings either way. I think he's very much flawed because he's a child and because he's a man. Like, I don't think that it has to do... Sorry.
List your flaws.
Yeah.
Flaw number 1, man.
Jeez,
Bree's
what's
like,
with all the
agreed.
misandry around here?
So,
Jess, this was
I
much
think
better
that
when it was
he's,
just me and you.
Fucking invite Eve to the Garden of Eden, why don't we?
Y'all know that was pinned on Eve. Don't even. We'll talk about Children
Yo,
of Eden
I
on
want my
another day.
rib back, excuse me.
I want my baby back, baby back, baby back.
I want my baby back, baby back.
Oh, Christ.
Now we're going into Neil.
I can't fucking breathe. Jesus Christ. That's known as a good song.
Okay, yeah, we're good. Let's
All
move
that's
on.
known as a good song to set up the character. The end.
I agree. Those you've known as better. I agree. I want to talk a bit about Touch Me, which is probably one of my favorite songs in the entire show.
It's the best song in the show.
Yes.
There's a reason that when they did their performance on the Rosie O'Donnell show, which was pretty iconic because Rosie O'Donnell's show highlighted theater so well, and we miss that show dearly because no other talk show really does it the same way that she did.
Rosie is better than
she
Ellen.
had them perform Touch Me. Yeah.
That's
anyways,
like an
that's
easy
a whole
one.
other thing. She's the best. I watched her yell at Mike Pence at the Kennedy Center. Anyways, Touch Me has this great notion of it's kind of like All Got My Junk, but I'll say that Touch Me features so many beautiful solos that don't get to happen throughout the rest of the show, like Georg's big solo, Otto's big solo. It's just a beautiful song that every time I've seen it staged, as long as you have people hitting their harmonies, it comes off like the best thing you've ever fucking seen.
Yes.
So I think that song really solidifies how beautiful that show can be. That's my take.
Like, literally, I will never not get chills when it's like, oh, where I go, like, fucking, like, just blow me to the back of the wall. That moment just, like, destroys me every time. Yeah, that song is the best song in the show, but it is not my favorite song in the show. Like, that is a very clear distinction I tend to make, but while that is the best song to sum up what this show is, how it's portrayed, and the overall stylistic choices of the show, while also being a great song, it is not the one that hits hardest for me, and we'll talk about that one later. So, after that, wow, Act 1 is a mess, but I want to talk about And Then There Were None, because I want to talk about Moritz for a bit. And Moritz is, like, probably my favorite character in the story.
Well, fine, not like it's even worth the time, but still, you know, you wanted more. Okay, so nothing's changed. Heard that before. You wanna laugh, it's too absurd. You start to ask, can't hear a word. You wanna crash and burn. Right, tell me more. You start to cave, you start to cry. You try to run, nowhere to hide. Wanna crumble up and close that door.
He's the best character, hands down.
Moritz is one of the best characters in this piece, and this is like his really big moment. Like, this is, if I remember, like his only big solo where he's reading the letter from Melchior's mom about like how she won't fucking help him because, you know, you're not
Didn't
gonna
even give a shit.
well, I'm not gonna give this kid $1,000 and just because he's gonna threaten to kill himself. Like, what?
Threaten to.
I love this song because it does kind of get like the life and death kind of feel of teenagers, where everything feels like it could be the end of the world no matter what. I related to Moritz real hard when I was young. Like, I always saw myself as him because grades were super important in my household. Like, that was like a real big pressure upon me, and I like whenever I fell short of that level, it felt like life and death. And in a way, it did feel better. In theory, it felt better to be dead than have to deal with that pressure. Of course, now I'm an adult. I'm like, what a fucking idiot.
Yeah, the stakes are super high. Yeah.
What a stupid kid.
Well, he does actually get kicked out of the house, doesn't he?
Yeah. And then he gets kicked out of the house, but that's not bad enough. A girl doesn't like him. That's what does it.
I thought she did like him. He just didn't go with her.
I think that's even worse, honestly.
Yeah,
I think
why
he was
did it.
super lost in his depression that he couldn't even see that someone was extending a hand to him because he didn't feel worthy of the hand. Because he had been told up until that point that he was kind of a piece of shit and not worth caring about. And here was this girl being like, who had nothing, by the way, who was, a ghost of her own self, if you want to put it in those terms, like, and then she ends up being a ghost later on because she died, like, he can't take it. He can't physically take it. It's too much affection for someone who thinks he's so deprived. So, it sucks.
Which is also a real thing that I related to, where I would just assume people hated me because I hated me so much, which is an actual facet of depression.
Nobody hates you.
Except you.
And if they do, then you know what? They're probably right. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Andrew. I knew you, true friend. I'm a jack off on this essay native to read. All right.
The girl he doesn't go with doesn't die, does he? I thought that was.
We're not taking your word on what
Liza.
happens in the show right now, okay?
No. She dies.
Liza dies?
Ilsa?
When did she die?
Yeah.
Elsa dies? That's
She's
sad.
dead in the end.
Frozen 2 is real dark.
Yeah. Because
Dude, Frozen
she
2
gets
is so
wrapped up in that cult that she was
Yeah.
talking about.
Oh, I don't remember that. But okay. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. It wasn't focused on in the musical nearly as much
Purple
as it was
Summer
in the
is kind of
play.
everybody.
Everybody's dead.
Everybody's dead. All right. Let's talk about the song that breaks my heart and my favorite song in the entire show, unless there's one that I've missed already, Grace, and that is Left Behind, which just rips my fucking heart out and chews it up and spits it out.
All things he ever wished are left behind. All the things his mama did to make him mine, and how his dad had hoped he'd grow. All things he ever lived are left behind. All the fears that ever flickered through his mind. All the sadness that he'd come to own. Oh.
Oof.
Can I tell you an anecdote about Left Behind?
Of course.
I don't know if you guys came across. So Left Behind is an incredibly sad song that takes place during a funeral. I'm remembering it right. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it is.
So in the original production, Jonathan Groff is Melchior, and he's singing Left Behind, and they're in previews, and he's incredibly sad. And they all keep putting the roses down in front of him, and they're walking by, because that's how it's pretty much always done. They drop the flower into the grave. And he realizes he cannot remember the words, and he starts to just go, all things, and he just starts repeating himself like over and over and over again, and they are all not facing the audience, they're just facing him because they're passing him, and they're looking at him like, dude, you fucked up. Like, we're gonna try to help you, but we're not gonna help you. And they all just stare at him, fucking up the lyrics for like 2 straight minutes of him just being like, all things. He just could not get it together. And it's like one of, I don't know if there's a video of it. I think there was one, but he was talked about in an interview like years later being like, I thought I was gonna get fired that night. So just imagine like how much you love that song, and then going, and then him just being like, I got nothing. Like, horrifying.
He's got all the things.
But he's got all things.
He's got all things.
Yeah. It's a really sad song.
It is a depressing as fuck song. Like the one time the kids have a slight one up on the adults, like where he finally gets to kind of say something at the adult, talk down to the adult, where he's like, you fucked him up. You didn't pay attention when he needed you, and you are wrong, and you should feel bad. That is the one moment where Melchior has a slight advantage on the adults and gets to talk down. And it is the one bit of like kind of cathartic justice in a way, where we're just also sad that Moritz is gone, but we also love taking the parents on a guilt trip. And I feel like every kid has kind of had that power fantasy, like, they'll miss me when I'm gone.
Yeah.
This song's great. And y'all are just wrong. Let's talk about Blue Wind.
Maybe I should be some kind of laundry line. Hang their things on me, and I will swing dry. You just wave in the sun through the afternoon, and then unseen they come to set you free beneath the rising moon. 'Cause you know
worth mentioning because it's right before that death.
Yeah.
We don't get that much of Ilse's character
No.
other than this scene. And it was so iconic when they would perform this on a lot of award shows. She's wearing this like white oversized button-up shirt. Looking back, you kind of realize that she's stranded, homeless. She's part of this cult. That's definitely a man's shirt. She's being sexually taken advantage of by a lot of the men in the cult. I mean, it's kind of a horrifying situation. And then she's extending her arm out to Moritz, and he's like, nah, here's a gun, though. And you're like, what? No! But it's this back and forth of like rock and then this like folk song from her. And it's always when you get two people that can really sing the shit out of it, it's like, it's a heartbreaking and somehow sexy, like beautiful song. So I always look forward to people that can nail it. It's like, oh, that's a great duet, because it shouldn't be a duet, right? You've got two very contrasting genres. So I always think that song is worth noting because it's such an iconic piece from the show that kind of sticks out of the show. It doesn't fit into the mold of the rest of it.
Yeah, and it is kind of like a nice mosey away from the Vendla Melchior story, which we kind of need to step away from because there's just that really raucous sex scene, and we see it again, and we don't want to hang out with them in that aftermath. We kind of want to step away from that, and then we see how rough Moritz has it, and it's like, fuck me, can't we have a moment, please? And
oh, right, because we have Guilty Ones.
Yes.
About, they recreate that sex scene, and then they're like, the whole group is singing about how their bodies are so guilty and disgusting, and you're like, well, what? Why? When were we gonna know that? So, that's a bummer.
Whole show's a bummer.
It bothers me that John Gallagher has not returned to Broadway. He's become like an actual movie star, and now it won't touch Broadway.
I saw him like 3 years ago in a straight play, not a musical. He was in Long Day's Journey into Night.
Yes, I forgot about that. You're right.
At the Roundabout, but right after Spring Awakening, he did American Idiot. That was
remember
his
that.
big, pop, like rock, whatever. And so he has become such a film and TV actor. Like Short Term 12, it's him and Brie Larson and Lakeith Stanfield, and now all these people, Rami Malek. He's become that, and I'm like, can we get him back? Can we get him back to singing?
Yes.
When he was doing Long Day's Journey, everybody was kind of like hushing around that he might return to some music stuff. I think that the part would have to be thick as fuck, and he would have to like really train because he hasn't sung in a long time. I know he has a rock band that he used to play in Brooklyn. Not that I stalk him, it's just that he would play, and my friends really enjoyed the music. It's not important.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Huge fan. Big fan. You're allowed your hyperfixation. It's fine. It's good. Let's talk about Totally Fucked properly now. Just like, I want to talk about this specifically because it seems halfway through this song they just gave up on writing lyrics and we're like, blah, 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 blah.
Man, you're fucked if you just freeze up. Can't do that thing that keeping still. But you're fucked if you speak your mind. And you know, you will. Yeah, you're fucked, alright. And all for spite. You can kiss your sorry ass goodbye. Totally fucked, will they mess you up? Well, you know they're gonna try. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah.
I didn't love this song. It might be my least favorite.
I agree. I think this song is probably the one that means the less. And yeah, it is a cool moment to like kind of have a fun punchline. But after the first You're Fucked, you're kind of like, I get what this song is. It is kind of a rebellious chant and teens like jumping around and goofing about and having their moment of revelry fun before we get to like the real dark shit in the rest of Act 2. It is our last moment of kind of joy. It is important, but I'd like it least.
I think it's meant to anger the people that are still left in the audience, to be honest with you, because at that point, you've still got pearl clutchers, but they're like, there's a lot of artistic integrity with the show. But when all these kids just start yelling the F-bomb over and over and over again, they can't escape it. And a lot of the time, audiences would freak the fuck out and be like, it's too much, it's too much. They just keep saying it. And I'm like, yeah, they're not going to stop saying it. That's the name of the song. So, like, they were crucified about doing it on the Tonys. Like, they had to, like, change words and all that good stuff. They were like, totally, which was kind of dumb.
Lame. If you're going to censor yourself, don't even do it.
I mean,
there you go.
That's a wacky part is the first time they performed the Tonys, they performed The Bitch of Living, and they basically censored every other word. Then when the 2015 production comes, they perform The Bitch of Living again, but they don't censor anything.
That's what they should have done the first time.
Yeah, they did a whole medley the first time, and that's what I wanted them to do this time. But then
they should have done Touch Me. They should have done Touch Me, but maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I just like that song too much. Whispering, which is, I think, the last song we want to talk about because we've talked about those you've known previously.
Whispering, hear the ghosts in the moonlight, sorrow doing a new dance through their bones, through their skin, listening to the songs in the fool's night, fumbling mutely with their rude hands, and there's heartache without end. See the Father bend to grief, the mother dressed in mourning, sister crumbles, and the neighbors grumble, creature issues warning.
I know Grace hates this song, but I think I love this song. I really like this song. I get what you're saying. It is droning. It is constantly just going on. But my God, the like twinkling of the music just sounds gorgeous, and like what it's saying works in that moment. And the actual story progression up to there, I think it is a good reaction as well as good like underscoring to like all the plot happening. I think if you look at it as that, as like a piece to coincide with the world around it, it is super effective. But I get what you're saying too.
I need to hear a counterpoint so I can take a side. Why is it bad?
Grace?
It's just boring. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm just not here. It's like lagging. I don't know. It's just like, I think that the plot I think you're right, Jess. I think that the scenes that happen within the songs are within that song particularly are more interesting than her coming back in. I think it just gives the actors a break, and then she's just standing there like repeating the same melody over and over again. I think that the scenes that progress the story are more interesting, and I think that her coming back into Those You've Known reprise is a better send-off than that song. That song kind of sucks.
I agree that it is a better send-off, but then I got like songs where it's like, see the father bent in grief, the mother dressed in mourning, and he touched me, and I let him love me, and let that be my story. Like, I love that. It's great.
Well, I'm glad that you love it.
But then again, I am not a female where that is my only solo in the show. So maybe I'd feel differently if I was in that position.
All right,
When
I
you
can't take a
stack
side.
it up and look at all of the heavy, awesome music these guys get to sing, and then they're like, you get this song and it is usually cut. You have to kind of get, well, fuck. And then she dies right afterwards? Fuck me. And then Ilsa, who is not even the titular female character, not only gets Blue Wind, but gets Purple Summer, which is also a great song. So it's kind of like infuriating as far as like ingenue songs are concerned, because it doesn't do anything for her. I think it is lovely to listen to. I think that what you like about it is that it's a beautiful song. You know what I mean? Because that's correct. But as far as like comparing everybody's shit, it's kind of like she brought a Lunchable to a charcuterie board.
I feel like you're both right, so I'm going to take both sides here.
Fucking great. You know what? I'm sick of you. I'm sick of you, motherfucker.
What do you want? It can be a good song and a bad song at the same time. I'm taking that position.
I feel like I'm going insane slowly over the course of this episode. Okay. All right, guys. What is our overall thoughts on Spring Awakening and our cheese rating? Andrew, you're up first.
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know. I still don't really know how I feel about it. I think I kind of liked some of it. I don't know.
Put
Do I
that on the
recommend
poster,
this?
guys. Get that on the poster
Do I
real
recommend
quick.
this? I feel like I do recommend this because I think it has something to say, which is more than you can say for some shows. At least this show knows what it's trying to say. I think some shows have no idea what they're trying to say.
Dear Evan Hansen.
Yeah, they just say things and then you're like, wait, did you really just do that? I think this show is very pointed and knows exactly what it's doing. So
Yes.
I think I can recommend it.
And it's very careful about its implications and the message it's trying to say. I think that is one of the things I want to hold this to, like, the best. A lot of people say, oh, it doesn't age well. The message itself ages great. Yeah, some of, like, the swearing and stuff isn't, like, as edgy as it once was, but that does not mean the content and message is less valuable.
Yeah. So as far as a cheese rating, I'm gonna give it a Schloss cheese, which is a milk cheese from Austria that is known for its strong stink. And I feel like stinky cheese fits this show because it wants to offend you. It wants you to be upset. So there you go.
All right. Grace, what is your overall thoughts on Spring Awakening and your cheese rating?
I truly think that this show is, I think because of when it came into my life, I'm always going to have fond feelings. You know, when something that you ingest when you're younger, no matter what, like Space Jam is one of my favorite movies. The trailer for Space Jam 2 came out the other day and I was like, fuck it, I can't wait. Like, I don't care. I get so excited about it. Granted, is it going to be the most perfect, sequel to a movie?
Yes.
Probably not. It might be.
really.
I don't know. Andrew and I will talk about it in another podcast, maybe. So, yeah, like, I mean, I think it's, every time it's revived, I think I'm going to go see it. Every time somebody does it, even a community setting and a regional setting, I think that it's always enjoyable, especially when you've got actors that can pull off those scenes that are really heavy and then have those killer voices. I also think it's really important to note that, like, the future of Broadway singers, people's expectations are that you're going to be able to sound like that you're going to be able to pull some kind of alternative voice out of you. And the way that these musical theater colleges have been set up, like, they've not, up until that point, they weren't told, hey, you're going to want to maybe like learn some Alanis Morissette. Maybe you're going to break into, you know, your book and evaluate what you've got that can give you a rock vibe. You know, we didn't have that up until then. Everyone that did Rent was very specific. And even then it was still an opera sounding show, like in many ways, a rock opera. And this show was like, fuck it, this is the future. And I think that schools and young people alike are just going to have to learn how to adapt and be able to be molded and all that good stuff. So I think that this show gives me Parmesan vibes because I want it on everything all the time. Fuck it. I want a fancy parm. I don't want the green plastic shakeable on a pizza when you're inside of a restaurant. No. I want to go home and I want to shave this parm on top of everything. And that's where I stand.
That's beautiful. I think that's great. I agree full with you. I think I cannot be objective about this because of the age I discovered it, which was very similar age to you, maybe a little younger, where I was just it spoke to me about what I was going through at that time and really affected me in those ways and gave me something a little edgier than Oklahoma in a very teenage-centric way. Now
a little edgier than Oklahoma.
And put that on the poster. A little edgier than Oklahoma, but only a little. But I really connect with it still. Like, even re-listening to it and re-watching it for this, I was still like, I feel the same way I do. Left Behind still rips out my heart every time. The character of Moritz is like my spirit animal. I feel such a deep connection to him. So, like, it just breaks my heart every time. And every time I'm like, I want you to live, buddy. Come on. But it didn't work out. It never works out every time. So with that being said, I love this show. Yeah, it probably hasn't aged well. Yeah, the children probably won't like it, but it wasn't made for them. It wasn't made for the older folks either. It was made for folks like me and Grace who found it at the right time, at the right age. And that's fine. So my cheese rating is Swiss cheese, made at St. Moritz Cheesery in London. It's a Swiss restaurant in London because St. Moritz. I did it.
Sure.
Aw, very nice.
Bree, what is your cheese rating and overall opinions on our discussion?
Somebody's got to pick a German cheese, right?
Like a goat milk situation.
I would say that your conversation about Spring Awakening has left me with mixed emotions. I don't know if I would resonate with it now or if, like, I would want to watch it. You know, I've only seen one scene, and that was the man jerking off on these.
I mean, that's a good scene
in the
to
middle
see,
of the
though.
stage. So I'm going to share my screen because the cheese that I picked also leaves me with mixed emotions. But I have to share it with you. It's a sexy cheese.
When cheese goes bad. It is a very sexy cheese.
Yeah. And I don't really know how to feel about this cheese.
I don't like it.
Do you think that's a cheese that's about to fuck or a cheese that just got fucked?
I like her eyelids.
Yeah,
That's something serial killers say and girls say to each other. Literally no one else.
Yeah.
Maybe we're both.
Yeah.
I would not want to eat that cheese's eyes.
I'd like
Imagine
to eat its
biting
ass,
into
though.
the cheese and it's got an eye in it.
I thought Andrew was going to say I wouldn't want to fuck that cheese.
Right.
I mean, I can't say that with a
On that
straight
note,
face.
I'm pretty hungry.
Wow, we made her hangry from the cheese. Get this off the screen,
stop
Bree.
sharing.
Get it away. I don't want to look at that.
Get off the screen!
Turn it off! Grace,
My eyes.
you are a wonderful guest, a wonderful human being, and I am very lucky to know you and get a chance to talk with you as often as I do. Please promote all your stuff for the world to hear.
Oh, thank you so much, Jess. Also, I hope that your Valentine's presents came off great because I had a joy making them. And literally, there were so many photos of you on my phone. I didn't realize that sounds very creepy, but it's you and your girlfriend. And I was going through my photos the other day. I was like deleting and whatever, moving some stuff around. And then I was like, Oh, that's nice. I hope they're well today. Like, I've just had that thought. So anyways, hope y'all are doing well.
We're doing great.
You can stream my podcast all of the time. Great. Season 1 is out of Tell Me on a Sunday podcast. Right now, I'm also co-hosting Broadway Radio. I don't know if you knew that, but there we go. Almost every single day, I'm talking about what's going on in the Broadway community. I know your listeners give a shit about that. And then also I have my Etsy store, which funds my art and funds all of my projects. It's etsy.com/shop/Grace Aki made it, and you can find that on Instagram as well. Follow me all the time on Twitter and Instagram at It's Grace Aki, and I will be sure to annoy you, but it'll be fun.
You don't annoy anyone. I don't think anyone's ever been annoyed by you. What are you talking about?
You say that. Yeah, but maybe so. But yeah, this is always such an honor and a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me. I love that show, and I would also be happy to talk about a show that I don't like for once. Waitress and Spring Awakening are close to my heart, but your show is great, and thank you guys so much.
Fantastic. You know who else also loves you, Grace? And I know this for a fact.
Guys.
Our wonderful patrons. Thank you guys for listening. Please follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, at Musicals with Cheese. We're on Twitter at Cheesy Musicals, Patreon Musicals with Cheese, YouTube page Musicals with Cheese. We have a patron-only podcast, Patreon with Cheese, where we're currently covering Gallivant, but we've previously covered Glee as well as Fosse Verdon. We did the entirety of Fosse Verdon. We had a lot of fun stuff on our Patreon. Email us at musicaltheaterlives@gmail.com. Our title card was created by the amazing Jolene Casco. Go send her some love at Jolene Casco on Instagram. Our keeper of the cheese is Juliet Antonio. Thank you for doing that, Juliet, because God knows I wasn't going to do it. This show is produced by the amazing, the wonderful, the beautiful, my great friend Brianna Jones. Thank you so much for being here, Bri. We missed you so much the last couple of weeks. We're so happy you're here. Also, the Bri Views theme was created by Robin Nash of IOU UK Music. Thank you to her for doing that. That was wonderful. Grace, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
I like most all of you, and I can't wait to see you again in the face on the Patreon live streams. So there we go.
It's gonna be great.
Look forward to it.
First Friday in May, she's gonna be there. She's gonna answer all your sex questions. Maybe that'll be it. Like, everyone has to ask Grace a sex question. That'll be our intro thing. That'll be fun, right?
In a very sterile way, like Dr. Ruth.
So if its penis is small, am I supposed to yank on it till it's longer?
Yes.
I just start crying.
Great advice, Grace. You know what? You should start a sex blog. I'd read it.
Thanks.
That's
yeah,
a weird
I should.
thing to say, Jeff.
It's because
Jess is
I want
just trying to educate himself.
I'm trying to be
He has a good partner
educated
life.
because I don't want to end up like the characters in Spring Awakening.
Well, exactly. We don't want to end up like that. We're all going to get our correct advice and education our own way and not die by hanger abortion. And on that note,
we'll see you next time on Musicals with Cheese.